Well, we have a winter storm underway in the Northeast. Winter storm warnings are posted for parts of the Northeast, as well as winter weather advisories. We still have winter storm warnings up for parts of the western Great Lakes, along with some winter weather advisories. And in the never ending storm in the west, winter storm and blizzard warnings from Washington State all the way down into parts of Southern California. What else is new? And strong winds in the lower Ohio and Tennessee Valley tonight as that primary low even produces some severe weather in parts of the Ohio Valley. We'll talk more about that and everything else that's going on, including what's going on currently tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. And in case tomorrow morning you find that you need salt, they've got it. There's plenty of it, along with mulch and topsoil and sand and everything else you need this coming spring to make sure that the outside part of your home looks magnificent. 631-756-1125, the best prices you can find anywhere, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. And Joe, right now here at Rancho Rayo in Putnam Valley, it is 35 degrees with a dew point temperature of 17, and we're still waiting for our first flakes of the day.
Okay. Let me just get rid of me. Move you to
No, please, we need you, Joe.
I'll move you to the other side there, and then I can bring I usually do that before we go on, but I was so excited about getting on the air tonight that I forgot to do it. So there we go. And let me put the camera in the middle so I'm facing straight. Good evening, everybody on the chat board. Welcome tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Our regulars are they're conversing furiously about what may or may not happen tonight. And also welcome to those of you who just lurk in the background, or maybe you're watching the show on replay rather than watching it live. We thank you for joining us. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can get notifications on the Joe and Joe Weather Show every night, Monday through Thursday at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m. We take Fridays and Saturdays off unless there's a storm around. And what else? I guess I covered it all.
David Fuller hitting Super Chat early tonight. Thank you, David. Says it's already turning to rain here by me, Joe.
Oh, he's in.
That's it for now.
He's in Monmouth County near the beach.
Well, did he anticipate that we were going to give him or provide him with enough snow to actually shovel down that far south? I don't think so.
Yeah, it was going to be a tough sell for the coast, east of the Parkway for sure. They did have sleet at Lakehurst. I saw a couple hours ago. We'll check the obs in a moment. I was looking at the radar. And in fact, let me bring that up right off the bat because it's fairly loaded just to the southwest. And I've noticed that the gaps have all been filling in the last couple of hours. So if you're following this, you're thinking, okay, well, that's not a bad sign. No, it's probably a good sign if you want to see this system play out and reach its snowfall forecast potential. Of course, we would just like to hit our forecasts and be happy about that. But I watched it as this evolved, and you were talking about that F-gen, that frontogenesis, and
right.
you can you could see the echoes that developed from it. This sort of northwest southeast banding that's going on, but the dew points were down in the teens today. And of course, that's dry air, and that seems to be happening right over the dry air, which is not beneficial to get snow out of it. But the areas that may benefit, though, Joe, probably going to be the areas further north and to the east. However, we've got all this rain and thunderstorms that are moving across eastern Pennsylvania. We're going to get into that, and as long as the atmosphere is cold enough, and it should be between now and at least for most places between now and say 3 or 4 a.m., I would think that would start putting down some accumulating snow as it moves through.
Yes, no question. And regarding the fact the dew points are so low, I mean, I said this yesterday on the North American model, the NAM model, the FOOS data, the tabular information, where the low end of the atmosphere closest to the ground was still, as of 7 o'clock this evening, showing relative humidities in the 60 to 70% category. And I've often noticed that when we have R1 levels that low, humidity wise, that we often get virga. We often get, even though the radar may show that it's coming down perhaps to beat the band, it's beating the band, but only down to about 1,000 feet above the surface, and then it just evaporates and dries up. I said last night it wouldn't surprise me if the snows held off until after 7. Well, they haven't held off in LaGuardia and Newark and places to the west and even to the north. My daughter is up in New Paltz. In fact, she's even on the chat board right now. And she said about a half an hour ago it started to snow. It hasn't snowed yet here, but I'm sure that once it does, it will, with the band of Omega or frontogenesis moving through, it will be very quick to intensify. Snow will be reaching ground. Also, we'll be seeing a more steadier and heavier round of snow in the hours to come. So the fun is only just beginning for many right now.
Right. Chuck Cardillo hitting Super Chat tonight saying it's snowing to beat the band where he is in the Catskills. So he's in that F-Gen area there. And his temperature's down to 25. Now, of course, we should note that Chuck's at 3,000 feet. He can yodel where he is. He's so high. But thanks us for our hard work, and thank you for your support, Chuck, as always. Oh, and by the way, we're at 66 likes, so the quicker you guys can take us, and gals that are watching the show, could take us to 100 likes, Joe and I will be happy very, very much if you could hit the like button. I'm going to go through. Let's go through some observations because this is this is obviously the game now. Who cares what the models do? I haven't really looked at anything after this morning, which is my usual way of handling things like this. When we get inside 12 hours, at that point, it's like I really don't need to see models. I need to see radar. I need to see satellite. I need to see observations to tell me exactly what's happening. Now, you mentioned the dry air and the dew points, and the thing is, you needed to have that dry air and those low dew points because you really don't have any Arctic air around, or even at best you want to call this was marginal cold air. So you need the dew points so that when the precipitation falls, you get evaporational cooling, and that causes the temperatures to drop. And what I found interesting today is watching the temps this afternoon. A lot of spots were in the low to mid 40s, but for some reason, a good chunk of Long Island and a good chunk of Connecticut did not get out of the 30s today, which sort of surprised me. And then a lot of those areas that got to 44, 45, as soon as it got past 3 or 4 o'clock, those temperatures dropped into the 30s pretty quickly. The virga probably helped the cause as well as that started to develop. We've got just checking on a few observations. So LaGuardia is 37 with a dew point of 19. They must have just started snowing there because their visibility 9 miles in light snow clearly. Long Branch on the Jersey Shore, however, is 40. And a dew point of 33. So these areas, and also with the wind from the east, it's going to be rain. Check out. Let's see. Let's check what station is this in New Jersey. Is Somerville. So Somerville is 36 with a dew point of 28. 8-mile visibility in light snow. So this is all the stuff that's ahead. If we go down into Pennsylvania, which I think is probably where we should look, where these radar echoes are a bit heavier, let's see Reading, because we'll get a full ob from there. They're 36 and 30, and they're reporting 4 miles in haze. I don't know. Oh, that's an
haze?
Okay. I remember my buddy Mike Leona, who used to produce for me he still produce. Well, no, I don't even think he produces anymore. But he used to produce me when I worked at Pix. He works at Kennedy, LaGuardia, and Newark as a rotating observer. That's sort of the station's way of saying when it reports haze that it's light snow. So we'll accept that. And let's look at Harrisburg. Harrisburg is rain and sleet. Okay. 37, 34, east-southeast wind at 13 miles an hour. 2999 on the pressure. The one thing we have to start looking at for also is off the southern New Jersey and Delaware obs are going to be important because it'll give us a clue as to the secondary. The secondary low, the primary is up somewhere in the lakes and falling apart. So we want to see where the secondary forms. Right now, all the winds in South Jersey are from the east or slightly south of due east or east southeast, and the same in Delaware. It's mostly east southeast or southeast, and then they go straight east into Chesapeake Bay, and then they turn northeast when you get to the Washington D.C. Baltimore area. So that's the area that we're going to be you want to look at to see where pressures are falling rapidly to get that secondary development, which is so important to the outcome tonight.
Okay, first off, I'm looking on GO 16, and the only lightning flashes that we're seeing in the Northeast corridor is over in West Virginia and also parts of Ohio. There's nothing yet. I was hoping to see at least a stray flash or two in the vicinity of the Delmarva Peninsula or South Jersey. Nothing like that yet. And yes, Mrs. Rayo, just reporting a few moments ago, 34 here at Rancho Rayo. And yes, we have flurries in the air. So it has begun snowing here in Putnam Valley at 7:40 or 7:45 p.m.
I have that loop up of the goes. I'm putting it up. It's up. It's up now. There we go. I just had to update it. And yeah, you see, there's those lightning flashes in Ohio and Western PA. All of that's got to play east. All of that whole area has got to move to the east. And we're just getting ready to get into the main band of rain. And by the way, if you look also on the satellite, Joe, you can see the enhancement really increases across southeastern Pennsylvania and over, starting to move over into northern New Jersey. So at least that part of the equation seems to be working at the moment.
Okay, yeah, and the expectation again is that we're going to have secondary development in the coming hours, and that is going to help to cut off the warm air advection from what basically is a 40 to 45 degree Atlantic Ocean. If you want a snow lover and you're getting winds from the east, you don't want that. You want more of a northeast or northerly component to the wind to keep that moist, mild air out of the area to preclude any kind of changeover from snow and sleet or whatever over to just plain rain. They've already gotten that, unfortunately, for folks who live along the Jersey Shore after a brief, cheap thrill of some wet flakes. But for the rest of us, and especially places inland, north and west of New York City, that is where the most significant snowfall is anticipated in the coming hours.
All right, let's take a look. Let's do the watches and the warnings.
And Leon Pravitsky says, yes, Joe, buoy 44025 is 45 degrees. So there you go. There's your mild air on the Atlantic. I can remember, Joe, other winters this late in the season where the ocean temperatures have been as low as the mid and upper 30s, but this was not one of those winters with all those mild days that we stacked up upon each other, especially during the month of January, where I think there wasn't a single day where the temperatures were below normal.
CB, who I think is new on the chat board. Welcome, CB. He says, I can tell you it's sleeting like crazy in Burlington County in South Jersey, 20 miles to the east of Philadelphia, where the temperature is 37. So that kind of tells you, that's telling you to the south and west that precipitation is heading up into the northeast and will be over the warning and advisory areas shortly. You can see where the warnings are, covering much of North Jersey, north of Route 78. The counties in northeastern Pennsylvania to the east of Scranton. We've got winter weather advisories going into north central PA, western New York, and into central New York, and then you get into the winter storm warnings, which I think include Binghamton, and maybe Syracuse is just outside of that. Winter storm warnings in the Catskills, the Hudson Valley west of the Hudson. Then there's a gap there east of the Hudson to the New York State, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont line, where you have winter weather advisories like for Dutchess and for Columbia counties.
Joe,
Yes,
just a late bulletin from the executive producer.
I'm
We
left
had
on the screen.
we had flurries, and now it's sleeting here in
Oh,
Putnam
okay.
Valley.
So you're getting advection.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, warnings for most of Massachusetts, advisories in the eastern part of the state, warnings for all of Connecticut, winter storm warnings for most of Rhode Island, advisories and warnings for New Hampshire and Maine. Don't want to forget what's going on around the Great Lakes, where there's also from this same storm advisories in the central and northern part of the lower peninsula and on the upper peninsula. A few winter storm warnings still remain in northern Wisconsin. Advisories in southern South Dakota and southern North Dakota and northern South Dakota. And of course, here's again breaking news. We still have winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings up and down the west coast from Washington down to California and inland into Arizona. Winter storm watches up in Arizona. I've been reading some of the stories out there with regards to the amount of snow, and it's just the folks seem just like they're walking around in a haze. They don't seem to be accepting of this.
No, they don't. Now, I'm wondering, just just backing up for a few moments here, the sleet that I'm seeing right now, and also reports of sleet in other areas. I'm wondering, Joe, if and last night we were talking and showing the soundings in various locations, and we had mentioned that at about 700 millibars above the ground, that's roughly what, maybe 7,000 or 6,000 feet up,
Yeah,
that there was a what we call
a
a
warm
warm nose.
nose.
Yes, and which the temperatures actually end up going. In fact, I'm looking here at the sounding from the 18Z GFS for 0Z or 7 o'clock tonight from my area, and the temperatures fall off as you get to the 850 millibar level, and then they warm very quickly from about minus 12 degrees Celsius all the way to about all the way to about plus 6 or plus 8 degrees Celsius at about the 700 millibar level. That again is a warm nose, the warm layer at the mid levels of the atmosphere. And I'm just wondering whether or not the precip coming down as snow goes through that warm layer, melts off and becomes rain, and then in the final 2,000 or so feet, as it descends toward the surface, it refreezes again, but not as snow, but as sleet. And I'm wondering whether or not the warm nose might be playing an effect at this moment.
It could be.
Not for the whole storm, but
No,
at the moment.
it could be. It could be. And of course, that also is a sign of what's happening. I brought up the GFS 6-hour map where you've got the primary low. It's actually already stretched out. The isobars are stretched north. Let me just draw it. So the isobars here with this storm are kind of stretched out northwest to southeast. So there was probably a leftover low somewhere in southwestern Michigan. There's a 989 low that's being analyzed, that's being shown by the GFS right near the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. And if you look on the radar, because the GFS has this, this sort of small comma-shaped area of convection. If we go back to the radar, you'll see that. And there's even a couple of thunderstorms in there that are moving into West Virginia at the moment. So the low center is at least what looks like the stronger of two low centers is underneath this hook that is moving eastward. And of course, now we're going to wait to see the low to start to reform somewhere out here in off the Delaware coast. The secondary low, which will bend the winds around to more northeast in time. So again, a lot to pay attention to when you're working a storm like this. The guidance isn't really going to help you very much, but here's how we use the guidance and then put it to the actual radar so that we can figure out what's happening. So I'm going to bring up my snow map, Joe, if you would, because just to hopefully prevent any problems. If you could send me your snow map on
Well, I didn't actually.
Messenger.
Okay, I'll do that. but I didn't change it from last night, Joe.
Well,
I
no,
I didn't.
nor did I.
Right.
Nor did
So
I.
I'll send it to you right now on Messenger.
Okay, but
Yeah,
I'll
there
do.
it is.
This is
There's
mine,
yours.
and this was the one from last night. Those of you who've watched this show and we've gone through snowstorms before know that I'm usually, I don't change maps every 6 hours. I make an early call and a final call, and the early call map stands until we get somewhere inside 24 hours. And when I feel I'm confident enough to put out a final call, I do. And this one I did last night. So I did it a full 24 hours before the system got underway. Now, my numbers are actually a little bit lower, and Joe's map from last night was almost identical to mine, so I could say the same thing about his. Our numbers are actually on the low side of what the Weather Service went for. Initially, our numbers were higher than them, and then this morning when I woke up, I saw what they did and how they upped their numbers. I was a little, I was maybe I wasn't surprised uh, totally that they nudged the numbers up, but in some places I thought they nudged them quite a bit up. So you can see I have New York City lying inside a band of 2 to 4. The further north you go, you start to get into southern Westchester County, probably the better chance to get to the 4. Northern New Jersey, north of Route 80, 4 to maybe 6. Between 80 and 78, 4 down to 2. And then from 78 south, let's go 2 down to Trace. And that's sort of where I left it. Connecticut, I left the same, which is basically in a range of 4 to 6, except in the you go northwest. North and west of that red line, it's 6 to 8, and I just left it 6 to 8 all the way up, including the rest of the Hudson Valley. Maybe you could. I'm going to bring up your map now, so just give me a moment here.
Yes, it is. It has been sent.
Okay, and there's Joe Rayo's map. It is on the screen. Are you there, Mr. Rayo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, did you want me to say something?
Well, elaborate. Actually, elaborate on the map. And then someone asked me today, and maybe you can address this since you live there. They were wondering why Dutchess County was only under advisories while they had warnings on either side. And the amounts are higher on either side. So maybe you could explain that as well.
For me to explain that, I would have to try to determine why. Dutchess County is under the auspices of the Albany National Weather Service. The zone comes to an end at the border of Putnam and Dutchess, and Upton, the New York City Weather Service, takes over for Orange and Putnam and Rockland and Westchester County. So I'm not sure why, unless the criteria is based upon climatology, that they figure,
isn't that part of the Hudson Valley, depending on how the storm is evolving, and depending on the wind direction? Is there not, because you're between the Catskills and the Berkshires, so isn't there a bit of a snow shadow that occurs sometimes over there that the amounts could be a little bit less?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the elevation is, average elevation in Dutchess County. I'm well aware that north of 84 in Orange and also across much of Sullivan and Ulster County, there are places that are above 800 or 1,000 feet. I'm sure that there are high places in Dutchess County, but not quite as broad as those counties I just mentioned. And that may very well be why. And of course, then you go further north up to the Berkshires into the northwestern part of Connecticut, and you've got some pretty high elevations there. That's the only reason why I said 6 to 8 for those places, as opposed to those zones, particularly to the east of the Hudson River, getting generally a 4 to 6 inch range of accumulation. And I'll tell you what, Joe, the more I'm thinking about it now, I'm thinking that, maybe it might be better to tell people, 4 to 6, but maybe put more of an emphasis on the 4 as opposed to the 6
right,
for snow accumulations here. Especially since, by the way, We're not talking about a puffy, fluffy, powdery snow, which accumulates very readily and can accumulate quite a bit, even with a small amount of water. This is going to be a mushy, slushy, heavy, wet snow, the clingy type of snow that clings very quickly to tree limbs, to the tops of cars, and the kind of snow that you love if you want to make snowballs and also snowmen and snow women. Uh, but that doesn't accumulate quite as rapidly or as good as snow with a much higher snow to rain ratio. This ratio today, you just look, you go roughly 10 to 1. You might even go only 9 or 8 to 1 with this snowfall we're
Right.
looking at tonight, as opposed to when it's very cold, when it's in the low 20s or teens, and then you start talking about snow ratios 15 or 18 to 1. And then you can get a lot more snow accumulation out of that.
Mr. William Smith on the chat board, I have a question for you because you say looks like a bust in Northwest Jersey. It hasn't even started yet. So I don't know why you would say that, but I'm just kind of curious as to why you're saying it's a bust when it wasn't supposed to start till generally after 7 o'clock anyhow. So if you could explain your reasoning, I would appreciate it. There's a tendency, Joe, and you know this is a really big pet peeve of mine. It's something that I can't mentally get my head around is when people say you forecast 4 inches and you get 4 inches or close to it, and people come back and there are people who will come back and say the storm was a bust. I don't understand what they're referring to. If it's a bust because you think you forecast was for 4 inches and you didn't get 15, okay, then you're the one with the problem because there was no big storm to be that was possible out of this. There's no way this is going to be anything big. I mean, this is a moderate snowfall by the standards of this area. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out what the bust comment. I just don't get it.
Well,
I
maybe it's because maybe they were looking at on television some forecasts last night. There were at least two local television stations, which will go nameless here. I will not mention them specifically, but one said for my area up here in Putnam County, 6 to 10 inches, and my eyes rolled around when I saw that. I said 6 to 10, and another station had 6 to 12. They had us in the 6 to 12 zone, and I said, no way in the world are we going to get 6. Well, I mean, the top end of my range was 6. But no way in the world are we even going to approach 10 or 12 inches out of this particular setup. But P.S., I noticed at least one of those two stations dropped back to like 3 to 6, more in
yeah.
line with what you and I were saying today. But maybe they were watching last night and seeing those kind of numbers and saying,
Well,
if they
Joe,
only got a 3 or 4.
the fact that the Joe and Joe weather show last night was on at 7:35. Certainly, those New York weather people must have been glued to their screens with, saw our numbers and just said, well, we have to adjust. We can't possibly go, if they're not calling for 6 to 12, well, how could we? Brandon Doherty hitting super chat tonight, and I think so did Leon Probitsky just a little while ago. Yes, he did. Leon Probitsky with the dancing, whatever that is. Dancing looks like Tweety. Thank you, both of you, for hitting super chat and 160 on the likes. Thank you so much. Getting close to 200. WPC, Joe. WPC in their latest update, which was issued at 20 minutes before 4 p.m. this afternoon, they've actually pulled down further south the probability of at least 2 to include New York City and the north and cutting across Long Island Sound. The 50% line, which is the line I look at as when I'm trying to decide where I'm going to put 2 inches. I look at where WPC puts the 50%, and I kind of go with that. It's cutting now Long Island in half and goes across Staten Island to New Jersey south of Route 78. And of course, you get into the Hudson Valley and up into Connecticut and points north, you're talking about a 90 to 100% chance. And the probability, so they've kind of, nudged their area a little bit further south. And on the probability of at least 4, the 50% line looks like it's not too far from the North Bronx, Yonkers, into northeast Jersey, and then just south of Route 80, going into northeastern Pennsylvania. And the numbers go up. North of Route 84, it gets into the 70% range for at least 4. And pushing up further into the Hudson Valley, you're seeing probabilities of 80 to 100%. And also up in the Berkshires and into much of central Massachusetts and northern Connecticut, where it's 80% or higher for at least 4 inches. Helen Bertona hitting Super Chat tonight. She says light snow and sleet in Reading, Connecticut at 33 just started. Also, Gloria Rangot on the chat board. Telling us some snow in Islip accumulating on car windshields. Very exciting. And Joe Arabia. Thank you, Joe. Joe Arabia hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you so very much. And as far as Friday is concerned, just a quick look here. This is their last forecast, and fortunately, the state of Louisiana goes over the time. I think that's 17:01 Z, so that would be at noon today. That's they wouldn't have updated this again. This is for Friday, and they have the 30 to 50% line cutting just to the north of New York City, back into northern New Jersey to about Hunterdon County, and then continuing into southwest PA. And then, of course, the 50 to 70 in northwest Jersey. The Hudson Valley's in 50 to 70, and Connecticut's in 50 to 70, and 70 to 90 a little bit further north in northern PA, and further north in the middle and upper Hudson Valley, and on up into the Adirondacks and into also central New England. So just to give you a heads up on what may be happening down the road. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's do this is my first look at the models this afternoon, because I'm going to, shall we start with the HRRR?
Why don't we? Shall we?
Surely,
yes.
Yes. Okay, so let's do it. And we've got the new HRRR on the way out, but it's only 8 hours out. So this is what it's supposed to look like right now. And I'll go back to the radar so we can, do a little matching. Always a good idea when you use these super short range radars to look at the first image, which is usually 1 hour in, that you match it up to the radar. So there's your radar I'll give it a refresh. And there's some heavy precip now in New Jersey here, so we'll check some of these obs. I'll have to call the hazards map up again. And then you could also see the other band of heavy precip with the thunderstorms. There's a little tornado warning there that came and went in southwest PA. You see that little red box that pops up? Right there. Yeah. So there's a little line there of some hefty storms. And also some heavy downpours showing up southern New Jersey, southwest Jersey, down into Chesapeake Bay and into Virginia. That's moving eastward. So the HRRR matches up pretty well. So that's a good thing. And as we look here, you'll see this is at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, the purple. Now, this is where I try to figure this out. Is that sleet? Is it because the color for sleet and the color for heavy snow are very close. So I don't know which that is. That could be a band of heavy snow. In fact, if you look on Long Island, that purple band gets in there at midnight, and then it goes back to all blue again. So this is at 1 a.m. So it's still.
I saw that last night, right over my area on last night's 0Z run, and I said, "What? They're changing it over to sleet all of a sudden, right in the middle of the storm?" But yeah, I didn't even consider the fact that might be leaning more toward a very, very heavy snow.
Yeah, because if you look, the color, Joe, the color of that purple is the same as the color purple that you see there over Lake Ontario. I mean, that can't be sleeted Lake Ontario.
Right.
I don't think. So, you know what? I don't know. But this looks like, to me, this looks like it's either sleet or heavy snow. But then if it's sleet, it goes back to snow again. So whatever it is,
Right. In fact, David Fuller, in fact, on Super Chats, thank you for hitting Super Chats, David. He says it's just turned back to snow and sleet here once again.
All right, so you're getting intensity. You got the intensity to help cool the column, and that's the thing here. A lot of this precip, that heavy precip, is really going to help cool the column down. You're tapping the vertical motions. That's going to really help to expand the snow area. And the last frame that I have on the HRRR is at 3 a.m., where it's still all snow on Long Island. Obviously, all snow in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and up by you and up the Hudson Valley. Snow's starting to break up a little bit in northern New Jersey. So far, so good in terms of, if you're looking at this in terms of a forecaster, I want to hit my forecast. I'm feeling confident here that things are rolling along the way they should.
Yes, and I'm still using the Go 16 that shows the convection, and we still have over southwestern Pennsylvania and northern West Virginia the only signs of any convection. But that could change in the next hour or two, because if a secondary is beginning to rev up off of Delmarva or off the South Jersey coast, the benchmark is always a bit of convection, and maybe we'll see a couple of flashes, maybe not during the show here, but maybe later on this evening. And again, that would be the sign that things are starting to shape up for a secondary to start intensifying right off the coast.
Jason Kaplan hitting super chat. Thank you, Jason. He says some flakes are falling in northern Monmouth County. All right, good. That's good. I went back an hour on the HRRR so we could take it out to 18 hours, and same idea. So the two runs are consistent. Again, is that heavy snow or is that sleet? I don't know. And then it still, still when I look at Long Island, it's still mostly snow here at 5 in the morning, and then it's done. It goes out. Then there's the primary low over Lake Ontario has some snow with that sort of fills in on the backside for southern New England and for southeastern New England for the daytime tomorrow, because at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, still showing snow over Connecticut, Rhode Island, and even by you, Joe, still showing some light blue snow tomorrow afternoon at lunchtime. And there's there's your secondary, by the way.
To use the words of a colleague of mine from many, many years ago. In fact, some of you may remember him on WCBS News Radio 880, Jack Boston. And sometimes when you have the backlash effect, as we're going to see tomorrow around the region, well after the secondary storm has developed and has pulled away to the east, we're going to be getting some dibbly squat snow. Ain't going to add anything to what we already have had. But, that's true. I mean, we may see snow, during the morning tomorrow, even into the afternoon, but it doesn't look like it's going to add very much to what has already fallen. Again, as you point out, Joe, between about, let's say, now and 1, 2, 3 in the morning, because again, with that frontogenesis area, that omega area of atmospheric energy, that line from northwest to southeast that's moving across the area now, that's where you're going to put down whatever you're going to end up with. So right. There you go.
Now, I pulled up a sounding. This is at 1 o'clock in the morning because, try to resolve this purple area issue. So I picked the point in central New Jersey where there's purple. And if you notice on the sounding right here, somewhere around 800, a little above the 800 millibar level, that red line right there goes just ever so slightly. Here's your freezing line, by the way, okay? And that goes all the way down to the bottom of the chart. So it's just nudged ever so slightly above the freezing line. So you could make a case here that it could be sleet or it could be heavy snow because it's just like right at 32. And then I'll go to Long Island where the other area of purple is, and I'll pull up a sounding there. I'll go to the north, closer to the North Shore. And here, Joe, on the sounding, it's below 32. I mean, it's close, but it's below freezing. and it has the ground temperature at 34. Now, I just want to point out, because a few people have brought this up with regards to the surface temperatures. In an instance like this, it's always going to be the surface temperatures are going to be driven by the intensity of the precip. That is how it works. So when you get that intensity of the precip, if it's coming down, if the snow's coming down really hard, that'll cool the very bottom, right near the ground. You'll suddenly see the temperatures, and I've seen it where it'll drop to even the upper 20s. I don't think it'll do that this time around, but it certainly could get down to, say, 31 or maybe even 30 if we get into a band of a quarter of a mile heavy snow. So the other thing I would point out is when you pull up the sounding and you pull up the ground temperature, that's the model telling you what it thinks the ground temperature is going to be. And I've noticed in cases like that it never really gets it right if it's heavy snow going on. It does wind up being a few degrees cooler. So instead of 34, it at the very least will probably be 32, maybe 31 or 30 if it's really coming down. Not impossible.
Dove Frieder, and there's a name I have not seen before, but hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Dove. Sleet in Spring Valley, New York. Hope it'll change back to snow. I have a pretty good idea, Dove, that it will. I don't think you're going to see an entire night of sleet in Spring Valley, especially with the way we're seeing intensities beginning to ramp up in the past hour or so.
And we just went over 200 likes. Thank you for those of you who have hit the like button tonight. And we have 428 people watching at the moment, which is terrific. Thank you. So we're only out 15 hours to the HRRR. There's your secondary low, which is way out to the southeast at about 38.6 and 70.3. And this last map on here is at 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. So how about the NAM 3? Should we look at the NAM 3?
The 3 kilometer NAM? Yeah,
yes.
Why not?
Shall we?
Surely.
Okay. So this was the 3 kilometer NAM. Now the NAM's been wanting to change it to rain. The NAM has really been playing up this warm nose, which I'm trying to remember. Did Tony Gigi say that NAM is usually good with that? I don't know why that's sticking in the back of my mind. But the 3 kilometer, does have this warm nose, but the 3 kilometer also has it raining over Long Island at 11 a.m. tonight, midnight. And I find that a little, that to me is a little bit hard to believe. Maybe the HRRR is too cold, but I got a suspicion here that the NAM is going to be too. This is the NAM 3, by the way. Like a look at the NAM 12. I usually don't like to look at the NAM 3 for snow cases, but the NAM 12, it's got this dark blue snow starting up at around 9 o'clock, between now and 9 o'clock, 10, 11, midnight. This is midnight, 1 a.m. Then it changes over to rain, then it goes back to snow, and then there's a mix. So it doesn't seem to know what it wants to do. But it does linger all this snow up in New England during the daytime. Actually, it's got precip. This is 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, it's still got precip over Long Island, and it's all snow in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New York State, obviously, and in Massachusetts. And then it continues. This is at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. It's raining in Boston. That the secondary low goes southeast, goes more east than anything else, or even a little southeast, and it's all stretched back to the northwest, which is probably why the precip is lingering as long as it is.
Right. Right. And you can see now why. And we both said this last night, that there are a lot of moving parts with this particular weather maker, and that's why it's making it a little bit more complex in trying to nail down who's going to get what out of this. But also, I'll stress again that this is going to be a player in all of you who have been jumping up and down and saying, oh, my goodness, look what's coming our way for the end of the week and maybe a big snowstorm. Nothing's going to be figured out until after this thing moves out and finally develops to maturity out over the ocean. The secondary system, that's going to play a role in whatever happens at the end of this week. And in between these two systems, there's another system, however minor or however weak, that we'll have to watch for on Thursday morning passing through here. That, with temperatures in the 50s, will probably be in all likelihood just plain old rain.
Guess what I have on the screen?
La
The
plumes!
plumes! I completely forgot about this.
Yeah.
And then I got a text from I mentioned him earlier, my friend and former producer, Mike Leona, who sent me a text that said two words, Joe, les plumes. And I said, oh my God, I forgot to look at the SREF. All right, so I just pulled up East Hampton. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, okay, the plumes, the SREF model is produced by Stony Brook University. It's an ensemble model. In other words, it's got a whole bunch of different members. Let's see. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 22, 27 members to it, and each member does its thing with forecasting certain parameters, ranging from temperature to dew point to snow amounts to precip type, which we could even take a look at. And then it plots it all on this chart, and then it draws a big black line where it takes an average of all of this. And the average comes out for East Hampton at 2.26 inches of snow. That's what it's forecasting. That's the average of all these 27 members. Now, my only, one of the things I think is probably a fair thing to do with this, with the plumes, and I'm not going to do it because I have to sit here and figure out which models are which, and I have no idea. We could pretty well rule out the ones that are are giving 0. So I would just not even use them in I would rather calculate a second mean without those members that are producing 0 or 1/10 of an inch of snow, because it seems to me that those are already wrong or going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But again, that'll take me forever to do, so I'm not going to do that. Just to get a fairer number, we'll go to islip. And this also, by the way, should note that at least for Long Island, it doesn't help. It doesn't help because this could be a type of system where there's an inch or so right along the immediate South Shore, and it could be 4 on the North Shore. So these stations are all more South Shore bias than North Shore. So for Islip, for example, 1.76. For New York City, it actually went up by half an inch. It's now at 2.27. White Plains, 3.40, and Poughkeepsie, Poughkeepsie, I know, 5.53. And we can look at.
So you see, for where I am in Putnam Valley, you just take between White Plains and Poughkeepsie, you would say that's somewhere between 2 and 5 inches is what we will probably see where I am.
Right.
No 6 to 10 or 6 to 12, as some were alluding to last night.
Monticello, is that the one I just put up? Yeah, Monticello. Monticello in the Catskills, 6.43. Let's go a little further north. Let's go to. See, I wish they had plots. There's these huge gaps where they have nothing. This station that's north of Hartford, 7.6 and change. This is at Bradley. So this is at Bradley Airport, 7.6. Pittsfield in Massachusetts. We've got. I got to lower it a little bit here so I can see. 6.57. And Albany. Albany gets 6.91. Okay, so there you have it with respect to the plumes. There's nothing here that says I should go higher. There's nothing here, in my view, that says I should go lower.
Well, we know that Pittsfield is located up in western Massachusetts, up in the Berkshires region. I don't know exactly what how high they are is above sea level, but again, you would think that places that are above 1,000 feet where it is, much colder by at least, 4 or 5 degrees than down by sea level, are probably going to see a bit more than 6. As I said on my map, I had 6 to 8. Just, educated guess there. But unfortunately, a lot of these maps, Joe, that we put out, or a lot of the maps that you see put out by the National Weather Service, they're all flat. They're all one-dimensional.
Right.
And that's not the case, because we've got the Catskills, we've got the Berkshires, we've got even the mountains. Oh my goodness, this is definitely a sign of age. No, not the Poconos. What's that line of mountains in New Jersey just to the west of the Hudson River?
Oh, I forgot.
See?
The Watchung?
The Watchung? Is that it? The Watchung Mountains?
I don't know.
I mean, sometimes in April, I've seen reports of, the top of the Watchung is white because they've got snow. Further down, they don't, and that's pretty damn close to the New York metropolitan area. So, anyway,
who just asked me? They want me to look. Justin Vale. There's no on the SREF. There's no dot in northern Fairfield County on the SREF, but I would think Danbury, for example, which is pretty much northern Fairfield County, will probably do pretty well by this. I would think they would get at least 4. Right now, Danbury is, wait, of course I hit the button here. Danbury is unknown precip, Joe. Unknown precip. It's 34, 23, southeast at 21 is the wind.
Wow.
9 miles in unknown precip. LaGuardia is now 5 miles in sleet and snow. Okay. Newark. I just, I kind of would feel more comfortable if the temperatures are just a few degrees colder, but 37 now all snow at Newark, 37-26 there. Northwest Jersey getting a bunch of 33, 32s in here. Andover's at 33 now. Sussex is at 32. 2 miles in light snow in Sussex. Let's go further south. There's a 32 here in Trenton. Trenton is 1.25 miles in light snow, and they're down to freezing now, 32. So you can see that the intensity, how it, does bring the temperatures down. Just let this update here. I'll see what the station this is. Quakertown Airport is this has got to be snow. It's an AWOS, and they're saying mist. Okay, it's got to be moderate snow here. Half a mile, right? I know, 32, half a mile in moderate snow at Quakertown Airport. So that's that heavy precip that's going on there. I don't know what that is there. Let's go up a little further north. Allentown is 32, 30, 3/4. So that's not quite moderate, but getting there. 32, 30 at Allentown. Renning is 36. They've got also the AWOS station says mist, so I don't know what that is. And Harrisburg is 37, now just light rain. Philadelphia is Philadelphia International Airport, light snow there, 36, 32, 2 miles visibility there. It's interesting to me that it's actually starting out as snow in these areas where the model, did not have snow. They had, yesterday, a lot of the models had mostly rain there. A few of them wanted to stick some snow that far south and west. The observations seem to be playing according to expectations. What we kind of expected this to happen at this time of day, and what we're seeing right now, we're getting what we should be seeing, and that the intensity of the snow should be picking up in the next few hours.
If you look on if you go back on the plumes and look at the 3-hour precip for snow, I looked at this for both White Plains and for Poughkeepsie.
Yes.
And it shows that the peak for White Plains is 10 p.m. tonight, although it drops off gradually to down to about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it takes a more steep drop. But in Poughkeepsie, it seems to sharp peak at 1 a.m. and then a sharp drop thereafter. So you have to say that, again, in alignment with the that band of energy that we were talking about at 700 millibars, 10 o'clock to about 1 a.m., that's pretty much going to be the time frame when the snow is going to be, or whatever precip is going to be falling at its steadiest and heaviest. And then after about 1, 2 in the morning, maybe a gradual drop off and a more sharp drop off toward daybreak. So whatever we're going to get, most of it has to come in the next 5, 6 hours ahead of us.
Right.
In order to get what maybe snow lovers are hoping for.
Yeah, I also just pulled up the precip type, and I was just noticing for New York City, for example. So the precip type, it has by 1 a.m. it's got 68% as rain, but it still has 27% as snow. Okay, and then that actually holds up for another 3 hours, and the rain area holds and then starts to drop. So I don't know. I've never really looked at the precip type on this, so I don't know what that means
It seems to me, Joe, that it seems to me where the blue line and the green line
where they cross,
I mean, like, let's say just before midnight, this would suggest a mixture of rain and snow, and then after that, the rain takes over and the snow drops off, and that pretty much is the ball game for New York City.
Yeah, but that doesn't complete. It doesn't go to 0.
No, it does not.
And the rain doesn't go to 100. So I mean, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, in terms of a practical experience of using it, I'd like to check tomorrow to see if it actually is raining when the precip type crossed. You know, I'm just not familiar with the tool. Is there a weakness in the tool? Do you wait for the percentage to get up, say, over 60% or over 70% to say that, okay, once it gets up to 70, that's your number that tells you that it's mostly rain? I don't know. I don't know.
I see on the chat board Renata, who's just, maybe 15 feet above me on the second floor of our home. 33 degrees now in Putnam Valley with mostly snow and some grapple falling right now.
Okay. All right, so let's really quick. Let's run through. Let me run through the upper air. So everybody's going to be chomping at the bit with regards to the next one. So, here we are today. You take a look at this upper air for today. Actually, I'll run it backwards just to show you where it came from. And that's that big wrapped up cutoff low on Saturday that was off the coast of Southern California, gets ejected to the northeast, reaches the lower lakes. You get the secondary to form, another little upper low that moves by. This is at 1 a.m. That's sitting in eastern PA. And then that trough moves offshore. The primary trough lifts up into Canada, and on it goes. Now here comes the next energy, dropping down into Southern California, but instead of dropping down offshore, it drops down in Arizona. Then swings east, lifts northeast, starts to open up, but still holds together there in southeastern Michigan, and then translates over into upstate New York. If you notice the upper air between the two of them, I mean, in a general sense, it's almost the same thing. It's almost a repeat. It's almost an identical repeat of what we're going through now. And the difference, Joe, on this one is this next one. So we'll look at this. Here's your primary secondary tonight. Okay, so you see it there. Primary low gets up into southwestern New York. The secondary is east of the Delaware coast. Secondary low takes over sometime tomorrow morning and then goes out and goodbye. We get this weak system coming through on Thursday with a front and maybe a couple of showers. Cold high comes down out of Canada and builds into eastern Canada. Now here comes the next low. And just like this one, we have a wrapped up low. It's a 979 low in southeastern Missouri. I mean, the winds are going to be howling with those isobars as tight as they are in the middle Mississippi Valley. You got the cold high that's draped around it. And this is the same thing. You got the only difference this time around is that your primary low is coming a little bit further to the east. Instead of running up into the Great Lakes, this one's coming a little bit further to the east. The high is trying to hold here. And it does have, this to me suggests, Joe, that we could have, I think maybe we could have a front end, a thump possibly, Friday morning. And then I start to wonder, well, okay, here's your primary. The secondary is going to redevelop. You can see the primary just almost disappears. The primary goes to northwest PA. The secondary develops probably just south of Long Island and then takes over. Um, Now, this might wind up produced because that high to the north is a lot stronger than this one. That air is colder. This might wind up producing some ice, a rather extensive area of ice Friday
Right.
night to Saturday morning. Now, the other thing I would suggest is because it's still early, we're looking at 108 hours here. What's to say that that high is just I don't know if it's going to be, but what happens if that high is just a little bit stronger and this system is a little bit just a little
Weaker.
bit pushed, a little weaker and a little bit more pushed down to the south. Um, that's this thing started out where it looked like we were going to see all rain, and look how this one evolved. And,
Right.
and and being that this one almost looks identical, other than the fact that the low is deeper and the high is stronger, uh, one is sort of offsetting the other. Who's to say that we may have a similar outcome on Friday like we have today
Maybe.
out of this?
That's like we'll see. We'll have to wait for this system to move on by. And I might yesterday I pointed out on the Storm Prediction Center the convective outlook for day 4, which is now Thursday. They have a rather broad area of 30% on day 4 for severe weather for the eastern part of Texas, much of Louisiana, southern Arkansas, into portions of northern Mississippi, and a sliver of western Alabama. Now, that obviously is affiliated with this very strong system that's crossing the country. And by the time we get to Friday, we've got a broad area of 15% severe, which is pretty good for day 5. And that's across the Carolinas, all of Georgia, Joe, including where you are, and eastern sections of Alabama, and a sliver of southeastern Tennessee. So I don't think that they would put up a day 4 and day 5 severe outlook if they were very confident that it was going to happen. And the one way that you have such such confidence is you have a very strong driver. In this particular case, the storm that'll be again moving up into the eastern Great Lakes, that storm that we're watching and tracking for our area this coming Friday and to Saturday. So we'll see.
By the way, the European, which has been running cold through this whole thing, keeps most of the areas that are snowing now in snow all night into tomorrow morning. Has a pretty nice looking secondary there that goes out. You see all the action, all the blue in the west. It just doesn't stop out there in the west. Now here comes the next one. Now we're not going to be able to go out far enough here, but just watching how this evolves, at least trying to get a sense. There's the next high coming down. The system for Thursday moving through with a couple of showers. Looks like it moves through a little faster than the GFS has it actually coming through Wednesday night. Then here comes your low, almost to 90 hours. That's as far as we're going to get here. So we've got a 977 low in southern Missouri. This big arm that extends from the low with precip through Indiana and Ohio, and you're just beginning to see some freezing precip in southwestern Pennsylvania. Again, this is a bit of a slightly colder high than what we had this time around. Not a big difference, but it is slightly colder. So it'll be interesting to see. The next few runs of the models will be interesting to see if it's what I suggested, where maybe it's a little, it gets flattened out just a little bit by the high holding on ever so slightly longer, because this high actually does hold in. The pattern's kind of blocky, so it doesn't really give way like it would in a progressive pattern where it would just go out. So something to think about here as we once we finish up with this system, and then we could put our attentions on the next one.
It's a 1023 high, at least that's how I interpreted it. Of seeing it on my screen.
Yeah.
And that would be for 12Z Friday. And you've got the main low, the primary low over southern sections of Missouri. See, our big snowstorms here in the Northeast, the high is in a perfect position if we were dealing with a system that was, let's say, coming up from the south off of the North Carolina or Virginia coast. But this type of scenario, what we're going to have to do is hope again, as we are seeing right now on this Monday night, for some kind of a secondary development to take shape and take shape very rapidly before there's a chance for any advection from the ocean to kill off any possible freezing or frozen precipitation. But again, folks, that's 4 days out. And again, we won't really know for certain until after we kick this thing out of the way and see how this develops. And even that smaller system that's coming through, according to the European, it's Wednesday night. GFS has it Thursday morning. That pushes through. That's actually the front that's going to help pull in the dry, cold air from that high pressure zone. And then we'll see what happens with that major system, that major storm over in the middle of the nation for the end of the week.
Leon Probitsky saying the snow's picking up in intensity, starting to stick on the truck in the grass. Temperature down to 34. All right, well, it's a race now between now and, say, 2 or 3 a.m. I'm going to be curious to see, does New York City, I should have put that up as a poll question, does New York City get enough snow to keep it from being the least snowiest winter on record?
They need 2.4 inches to tie 1972-73 winter for
Which
the
was
least amount of snow.
2.8, then they have to get to at least 2.8?
Right, and we have 0.4 right now, so.
Okay. All right, so I think what we'll do is, we're going to hold off on Briller Jeopardy. We'll do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow we'll have 3 things tomorrow. We'll have the postmortem on this storm. We'll have Briller Jeopardy, and we'll have your much-awaited rant that you pushed off until tomorrow night from Sunday night.
Yeah, I blocked a few more people today. I know, it's hysterical. It really is hysterical. But yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay, so 248 likes. So let's be kind and just see if we can get 2 more to 250 so we have a roundish number, and we just do, so we can say goodbye. Thanks to all those of you who hit Super Chat tonight. As always, we greatly appreciate your generosity.
I'm going to run down the list. Dove Frieder, Jason Kaplan, David Fuller, Joe Arabia, Helen Bertona, Brandon Doherty, Leon Probitsky, Birder Lady. By the way, I'm looking forward in 5 or 6 weeks. The hummingbirds are going to return, believe it or not, right? Chuck Cardillo, Merrill Montrose, and Anthony Spiraccio. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. But thank you all for contributing and hitting Super Chat on this very busy, really busy, probably the busiest we've seen so far this year of 2023 here at the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
And on that note, Tom Contino, Joe, wants you to know that Channel 193 on Altice is now airing the Fox Weather Channel. Okay.
Oh.
So that'll give you another channel not to watch.
No, I will say this: they're very nice at Fox.
I know
Weather, and
I forgot about that. I should not have said that. I'll say that in reference to me, because I don't watch any of them. I don't watch Fox. I don't watch Fox Weather. I don't watch AccuWeather. I don't watch the Weather Channel. I don't watch local weather. I watch nothing. Okay, nobody.
I'm like you. I am like you. I did an interview today. They had a show on CUNY TV, and they asked me to come on and talk about weather and entertainment, believe it or not. And when it got around to the Weather Channel,
What are you going to do? Give a forecast while doing a kick line dance like the Rockettes?
No, but I pointed out that the Weather Channel was so much better when it first started back in 1982. When
you mean when it actually was a Weather Channel?
Exactly. When they said we're going to give you 24/7 weather information, and then I said after NBC Universal bought the Weather Channel, all of a sudden I'm watching weather-related movies like Twister and The Perfect Storm. I'm saying, what is this? What am I watching? TCM or the Weather Channel? That's an example of mixing science with entertainment. But with the folks over at Fox Weather, whenever there's some astronomical event, they call and ask if I could delve into that, and it's nice. But I don't, like you, Joe. I don't really try to watch any of these weather-related channels, because again, it's not the same as when they were around 30, 40 years
Right,
ago.
and because Tom also asked, how could a weatherman not watch weather? Because why should I? I don't need to watch. I don't need to watch somebody do a show on the air for the public, because it's not useful to me. I need to look at observations. I need to look at satellites. I need to look at radars. I need to look at models. I don't need them to sit there and give me their version of it. I need to create my version of it. And for years, I made it a point. I never ever listened or watched anyone on another channel before I did my forecast, because I didn't want to be biased by what they were saying. And that gradually evolved in the latter stages of my career. I would say probably the last 15 years of it. I didn't watch anybody at all. I mean, I just didn't. I had no desire to. Why would I want to? I don't know.
Christopedia comes up with a great analogy, a great metaphor. She says Joe Rayo and Joe Cioffi watching weather reports is like a plumber calling another plumber to do the work on the house.
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. That's perfect. That is perfect. Exactly correct.
And
And Joe, in 1 minute or less, and then we'll go. Tyler Fiengo wants to know, how come the secondary low cuts the warm air source off for storms, and how come it can snow when the dew point is under the actual temperature? Well, the dew point's always under the actual temperature. The dew
right,
point's always less than the temperature.
you
Uh,
can't have a dew point of 34 and a temperature of 31.
yeah,
That's impossible.
no, because
That's a super saturated solution.
yeah, that's basically somebody drowning you in a bucket of water. Um, but the secondary cutting off the warm air.
Well, I mean, if you just had the primary system, let's say moving to the through the eastern Great Lakes, the airflow would be for us an easterly or east southeasterly flow. When the secondary develops, now you suddenly have a situation where the winds are turning from east southeast into the northeast or even the north northeast, a colder airflow, and that helps to preserve the colder air over you and helps to keep the precipitation more in the form of snow or sleet or snow, as opposed to just plain rain with the system going to the west. More often than not, when we have systems going to our west, we don't have the secondary, and we simply say, all right, maybe a little snow at the start, and then boom, we go right over to rain. But when the secondary takes form, and if it develops in time to cut off that warm air advection off the ocean, boom, you get that northeasterly or north northeasterly flow. The cold air is maintained, and you stay all snow.
And while for competitive reasons, we should certainly have the Joe and Joe weather show on 24/7, that would physically kill us. Uh, so we ain't doing that. But we promise you that even though we're not going to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we will be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time.
And the one thing that kills me, Joe, and actually hurts me to a degree in a situation like what we have going on right now, is that I worked at News 12, as you know, for 21 years and helped to develop the traffic and weather channel on channel 61
Right.
when it was owned by Cablevision. And we had set it up in such a way so that you would get 2 minutes of weather, 2 minutes of traffic. We would alternate back and forth 24/7. And so if you woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, looked out the window, you saw it was snowing or raining, you could turn on 61, see the radar, get the very latest update on what was going on, see the latest temperatures. But ever since the flip to the new owner of what was Cablevision, it's now Altice or Optima or whatever, they took that channel 61 and they broke it up now. They made it such that when you turn it on, sometimes you're not getting traffic or weather. You're getting additional news coverage from News 12. They call it News 12 Plus. And and this is the thing that breaks my heart. From midnight to 6 a.m. when you turn on channel 61 now,
It's
you don't get
infomercials.
you don't get weather or traffic. You're getting infomercials. Like I once woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. The wind was going crazy, howling out there. I knew we were under some kind of a watch for severe weather. I turned on, and this was right after they went over to infomercial. I'm turning on 61 to just to expect to see the radar. I don't have to leave my bed. And I'm watching Chef Tony chopping up something on a chopping block or whatever. I'm saying, no, no, this is not, not even during major weather events do they switch away from the infomercials from midnight to 6 a.m. because it makes it the money. And that's what the new owners like, is they want to make it the money. They care more about the money than they care about you and caring about providing you with the very latest information on weather. When we had that weather channel going 24/7, Joe, Norm Fine, who we used to work for, we know Norm very well, still around, retired, of course, but Norm gave us a piece of information. He said, Channel 61 is ranking 3 times more viewers than the Weather Channel, which was right next door at Channel 62, because they knew, you, the viewer, knew that you could turn on 61 and see and know that when you didn't have to wait more than 2 minutes to get latest weather, latest radar, latest satellite pictures, temperatures, and whatever. All gone now, all gone for the sake of. You see Joe Lopresti there. This knife can cut cinder block and slice to a tomato. That's what you get, Joe. That's what you're getting down the overnight on Channel 61.
Well, just if
that's my rant for tonight.
If it makes you feel any better, Altice stock is down 80% in the last 5 years. It peaked at 37.83 on May 14th, 2021, and now you could get it for. Actually, you could get it now from the high. It's down 90%. It's at $3.72. So if they are trying to make money, they ain't doing a good job.
No,
they ain't.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Good night, Joe. I think we've been on enough.
Yes.
That's my rant for tonight.
That's your rant for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Time. 7:35. Good night.
Yeah. Good night.